Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's training. It's going to be with Holly Wilbanks of the Wilbanks Consulting Group. And the training that she's going to be providing for us today is called Biggest Student Communication Mistakes. So before I turn the reins over to Holly, I just wanted to introduce you real quick. Holly Wilbanks is the founder and principal of the Wilbanks Consulting Group. She is a recognized industry pioneer, providing innovative advice and strategic planning on issues surrounding talent management and career development for high school and college students. Prior to starting Wilbanks Consulting Group, Holly honed her skills in leading organizations in the U.S. and abroad as an expert in recruitment, consulting, and professional development. Her prior positions include roles with McGee Nelson LLP Law Professionals, Hydrogen Group PLC, Houston Independent School District, and Baylor College of Medicine. Holly regularly serves on the planning and host committees for nonprofits in the Houston area, including Big Brothers Big Sisters and the Children's Assessment Center. In 2014, Holly received the Visionary Award from NAGAP, the Association for Graduate Enrollment Management. And in case you guys didn't know, because of all of these credentials is one of the reasons why I asked Holly to collaborate with me on the student planner that is over on the Nerdy Girl Success page. She helped me with creating the aspects of what you should be doing freshman, sophomore, junior, senior year of high school and prepping for college and for careers and that kind of thing. So Holly, thank you so much for being willing to do some training with us today. And I am turning the reins over to you. I'm going to go ahead and mute myself, and you have full control. So thank you.
Thank you, Christina. I really appreciate it. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with everyone just so that we can take a look at what we're going to talk about today. But you know, a little bit further to what Christina said, talent management and consulting, those are kind of very vague terms. Basically, what I do is I work with high school students to figure out what it is that you love to do and what you'd like to be doing as a career before you go to college, so that you're not wasting your time and money through the college experience and you don't end up picking a job that you don't actually love doing once you get out of college. And in some cases, you don't even need to go to college. You may just need an associate's degree or certificate program. So we work through all of that. Today, what we're going to focus on is the biggest communication mistakes we see a lot of our student clients making, particularly in the job search process, but this does apply to working with your teachers, working with your mentors, maybe in your spiritual community or your coaches on your sports teams. So it's not just about searching for a job and getting your job or internship in high school and in college. It also works for other areas of your life too. So we're going to start with the concept of email. We're going to move into phone communication as well. I know some of us don't necessarily like to talk on the phone, but it is kind of necessary sometimes. Communicating in person, we think that because we're standing across from somebody, we know exactly what we're supposed to be doing and what we're supposed to be saying and that they should understand us. Not always the case, so we'll take a look at that. And then, of course, social media communication, everything from making sure that your privacy settings are there so that you can have your personal life, but also knowing what's appropriate to have out there, particularly when you are applying for an internship or a job. So when I say applying for a job, this could be a big job that you're applying for, or maybe it's just what you're doing on the weekends to make a little extra cash. And so it could be applying for jobs at Kroger. It could be applying for jobs at a local IT firm, because maybe that's your passion. It could be a paint your own pottery studio job. It just depends on what you want to do. These tips apply to everything. So when we look at email communication, the 4 things that I want you to think about are your subject lines, your recipient, your signature, and your follow-up. And you'll notice follow-up is on here multiple times in the different areas, and we'll talk about that. As for your subject line, you want your subject line to be super obvious as to why you are emailing somebody. For instance, if you're emailing somebody your resume, you don't want to just say resume in the subject line. You want to say resume and your first and last name, because this person probably actually gets a lot of resumes in their email. So one way to distinguish yourself from other people is to put your first and last name in the subject line as well as resume, so that they know that it's you emailing your resume versus somebody else. Another great thing is if there's a position number, like a job position number or a job title, to put the job title and the position number, if they're available, in the subject line as well. This lets the recipient know that that's the exact position that you're applying for. And that way, if that's a priority position for them, they're going to click on your email before they click on somebody else's email, which is always a good thing. When acknowledging your recipient, we want you to always use formal language. And when I say formal language, I'm talking about dear sir or madam, dear Mr. or Mrs. So-and-so, if you happen to know the person's last name, or to whom it may concern. All of those are appropriate formal ways to address the recipient who will be receiving the email. Finally, your signature. Your signature at the end of the email is just like in a formal letter. You're going to say sincerely, and then you're going to have your name signed. But I'd also like you to include your email address and your telephone number. And when I say your telephone number, the best way to reach you. So if you still have a landline at home and that's the best way to reach you, then put that on there. But if you already have your own mobile device or cell phone and you can receive calls on that, then you want to put that number instead. This way, it's super easy for the person who might be hiring you to get in contact with you without having to dig for your information. Then, of course, we have our follow-up idea. Once you send the email, you're going to want to wait 5 to 7 days for the person to respond. If you haven't heard back from them yet, then you're going to want to send another email. And in this email, you're going to change the subject line again. You're going to include the words follow up before anything else is written there. This way, when they see the email, they will know that this is a follow-up to a previous email you've sent, and they should get to this ASAP if they haven't already responded to you. So that's a great little tip that we like to give our clients, and it definitely works for them as well. Moving on to phone tips. One of the things that I want you to think about is how you're greeting this person when you call them. Let's say that you're calling a store for information on whether or not they're hiring. If you just say, just calling to see if you guys are like hiring, that's not going to work out very well for you. What I'd like you to do instead is think of the tone that you're giving when you're greeting somebody. You want to sound friendly, you want to sound responsible, and one of the easiest ways to do that is to write down what you're going to ask them in advance. That way you have your notes in front of you and you don't have to think really hard about why you were calling them in the first place. I also want you to smile whenever you're actually calling them on the phone. Believe it or not, smiling actually comes across in a positive way via a phone conversation. So write down what you want to ask in advance and make sure that you're smiling when you ask them questions. Of course, if you're asking for a specific person, may I is always a great way to say, may I speak with the job supervisor, or may I speak with Mr. So-and-so if you already know the person's name who's hiring. Texting is something that you want to make sure the person on the other end wants to do with you. So texting is super easy way to communicate with somebody, but not everybody wants to communicate via text for work. So texting should only be used in 2 situations. 1, the supervisor or hiring manager texts you first. If they text you first, that's the clue that it's okay to text communications to them. The other obvious clue is if you ask them. So this means that you've already gotten in touch with them either via email, via phone, maybe you've met them in person, and what you're going to do is clarify how they like to best communicate. Would they prefer you to text them? Would they prefer you to email them, or would they prefer you to call them on the phone? Ask them how they prefer to communicate, and they will tell you. If they say text, that's the okay that you can text. Voicemail is something else that you want to think about. And I'm not just talking about your voicemail, I'm talking about when you leave a voicemail too, which, yes, I know is a foreign concept to many people nowadays. So first things first, I want you to think about what your voicemail says. So your voicemail, you don't want it to say, you have reached number 555-555-5555. Please leave a message. How do they know that that's you? You want to take the time to personalize your voicemail if your phone allows you to. Make sure that you say your first name and last name, and that you'll get back to them as soon as possible. And then make sure that you get back to them as soon as possible. You also want to think about how you're coming across when you leave a voicemail for someone. So let's say that you're calling a supervisor or a hiring manager and you get a voicemail. Yes, you should leave a voicemail. And when you leave the voicemail, you clearly, slowly leave your first and last name, slowly leave the telephone number at which they can call you back, and then let them know when is the next best time they can call you back. You can call me back anytime today, Thursday. You can call me back anytime tomorrow, Friday, that kind of thing. That way they know when is the best time to reach you. And then again, we have the concept of follow-up here, because maybe you've texted somebody, or maybe you have called their voicemail and left a message, and it's been a few days and you haven't gotten a response. Then it's okay to follow up again. You can follow up by leaving another voicemail or another text, but you should also try another form of communication as well if you have that ability. Maybe you can send an email if you have their email address. Maybe you can also just swing by the store. Let's pretend you're applying for a job at Kroger. You can swing by Kroger and say, you know, I just thought I'd swing by and see if so-and-so supervisor is here. We were talking about an opportunity, and I just wanted to make sure that he had all of my information. That's a great way to follow up with somebody as well. Finally, we're going to talk about in-person communications before we get to social media. So in-person is when you actually are face-to-face with the individual. The first thing that you want to think about, particularly if you're looking for a job or an internship and you're meeting about that, is your attire. Is it appropriate? You don't want to wear anything that is ripped or worn. I know ripped jeans are very popular right now, but you're going to leave your ripped jeans at home. And you're going to put on something that you might wear to your spiritual worship center, or maybe if you were dressing up for an event, family event like a wedding or something like that. You want to put some of your nicer clothes on. It doesn't have to be a dress or a suit, but you can definitely put something a little bit nicer on than what you might wear to school. So keep that in mind. You also want to have your hair and body clean. Make sure you've taken a shower that morning. I know that probably seems obvious, but sometimes we get busy and showering doesn't happen that day. So make sure you take a shower that morning, your hair is brushed, and if you like wearing makeup, put some makeup on. No big problems there if you want to wear makeup. Body language, you want to stand tall, you want to smile, and you want to make sure that you give a firm handshake. So more than likely, they will extend their hand to you to shake your hand, and you want to practice giving a firm handshake. You can probably practice on your older relatives like aunts and uncles, moms and dads, grandmas and grandpas, and they'll be able to tell you for sure if it's a weak handshake or a firm handshake. Being on time is really important. If you're not on time for the interview, they're going to worry that you're not going to be on time for the job. And they really need you to be on time for work because they need your help. So make sure that you're on time for your interview. My dad always used to tell me that being on time means being 15 minutes early. 15 minutes early is on time. So I suggest that if you're going to an interview or you're going to talk to somebody about an opportunity, get there at least 15 minutes early. And if you don't know where the area is, or you don't know where the office is or the store is, go there the day before. Map out where you have to go and how long it takes you at that time of day, so that you know the next day when you're going to your interview or to your meeting, I know exactly how long it takes to get there at this time of day, and I know I'm going to be there at least 15 minutes early. And then finally, following up once again is very important. So once you meet with somebody in person, you want to make sure that you follow up with them. Send them a thank you note via email. That's always appreciated. If you're allowed to text them, you can text them a quick thank you, but you should really be sending an email thank you as well. If you don't have their email address, make sure to get that when you see them in person so that you can send that thank you. And of course, if you haven't heard anything from them within 5 to 7 days, follow up with them again to see where they are in the process, and is there any other information that you can provide them that would help them make a decision. And this brings us to social media, which is going to be our last topic today. It's also a topic that is getting a little bit harder to navigate because more and more employers have embraced social media and they're using it to try and recruit workers just like you. But where are the boundaries between your personal life and your personal use of social media and navigating, communicating with an employer via social media? Let's take a look at that a little more closely. So your privacy settings are something that you want to check before you start looking for an internship or a job, or even just, networking with older adults. You want to check your privacy settings. And you want to make sure that your profile information, whether it's your Instagram account, your Snapchat account, Facebook if you use Facebook, make sure your privacy settings are in place so that they can't see publicly everything that you're doing. Put enough information out there that shows that you're a nice, responsible student, but then hide the things that are truly personal between you and your friends, you and your family, etc. The subject matter of your social media is something else that you want to think about. So in traditional workplaces, topics that people tend to stay away from because they can be a little bit controversial are things like politics and religion, or even your dating life. So keep in mind that if those are things that you're passionate about and you like to share information about on social media, it's not that you can't continue to do that. It's just that you want to make them private and not public settings for the time that you're looking for an internship or a job opportunity. We actually advise our clients that once they secure a job opportunity, they sort of assess what the workplace culture is like and things like that before undoing their privacy settings. Because it's very possible that once you get the job and you're in the work environment, it's not a good idea to make that information public again, but that is something that you can assess once you start the job. And then finally, when is it appropriate to actually engage with a company on social media? Well, an easy way to figure that out is to see if they're actually recruiting people via social media. And so see if they have postings on their main company website sometime about hiring, ex-employees. If you're an area student, come apply today. If they have posts like that and they're sharing content like that, then it's absolutely okay to reach out and respond via social media. Another thing you can do is you can try and just message them individually and say, I'd be interested in working for your company. What's the best way to find out more information? And if they engage with you, that's fantastic. Keep your communications professional, short, sweet, and to the point, okay? Use your best grammar, your best language, even though it's social media. You don't want to use your text language in social media messages when inquiring about opportunities. So, for instance, you want to spell out all of your words. and you want to spell them correctly, and you want to end sentences with a period, which is, I know sometimes a step that we skip whenever we're doing traditional text message language or messaging. So I think that is probably everything that I wanted to share with you. My last big takeaway is just always clarify up front what is somebody's preferred method of communication. And that way there are no questions as to whether or not you should email them, call them, swing by, or even send them a social media message. As long as you clarify their preference and you follow that, then you're going to have a positive experience with that person and with that job search no matter what. I'm going to go ahead and unmute Christina. I can't unmute Christina, but I'm going to stop sharing.
Here we go. I'm unmuted now. Yay. That was all really great information.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was really great. I was just sitting here thinking, I know it's going to make me share my age a little bit, but was just thinking about how different it is really to apply for jobs and just the things that that everybody has to consider. Because with social media, yeah, I mean, just what you were bringing up there was just really very appropriate, and just things to think about too. So
absolutely, absolutely. And there are some companies who, you know, don't mind seeing your personal passions out there, but it's always best to err on the side of caution. Absolutely. Until you start that job and you get into the workplace, and you can sort of gauge very quickly about what is acceptable and what's not. And of course, if you ever have any questions, you can always ask your supervisor.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, and to let you guys know, if you are catching the training as we are first broadcasting it, then you can check below and see the day and time that we're going to be doing the live Q&A with Holly over in the private Facebook group. So if you've been watching this and you have questions, be sure that you've written them down so that way you can ask her live. And if you happen to be catching this in the archives, or if you just happen to not be able to do the live Q&A on that day and time, again, it's going to be right below this training video. So go ahead and take a look at that. And if you still have remaining questions, Holly is a member of the Facebook group, so you can always pop questions in there where she can answer them like that. We also have on the side of the page here, we've got her links to her social media and contact information, so you can always reach out to her that way as well. I hope you have a great day, and we look forward to seeing you at the next training. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.